Hi everyone! Happy Halloween! Today I made a fun tutorial for you all. I'll be showing you how to make this super cute spooky cemetery acrylic painting. Before we get started, let's get everything ready. First, find a good sized canvas. I'll be using a 16 by 20, but if you feel more comfortable working with a smaller canvas or even a bigger one, that's perfectly okay. I'll be using acrylic paint from various brands. I have some golden and some Arteza that I'll be using. The exact colors will be in the description, but if you have different shades or brands, that'll work too. And most importantly, you want to make sure that it's safe to paint. Check that all of your doors and windows are locked. If you think they are, double check them just in case. This is extremely important. Check the dark spots at the back of your closet. Always be sure to check under your bed. Great, and now it's safe to paint. The paint colors I'll be using are white, yellow, magenta, and a purple. Any acrylic brushes will work as long as they're pretty firm. I'm using a rounded brush for the sky because it will give us nice, soft-looking brush strokes. A square brush will give you a sharper brush stroke, which also is a fun look if that's what you want to go for. You'll need a smaller, sharper brush for details later on. Wet your brush with water and start with your lightest color. It's easiest to start with the lightest color so you won't have to clean your brush quite as often. Make numerous brush strokes in the same general direction. We're going to curve the sky to give it some movement. If you want to experiment with different brushes to find out what brush strokes you like the best, go ahead. Keep in mind, the smaller the canvas you choose, the smaller your brushes should be to achieve the look that we're going for. For our sky, we want to see each individual brush stroke, so you don't have to worry about blending at all. Every stroke will be a slightly different tone, and that's exactly what we want. As I move upward, I'm going to gradually mix in more and more magenta or pink with my yellow and white. You'll get an orange color, and that's good. It's okay if your paint colors are slightly different from mine. The most fun thing about Halloween is that things don't need to look perfect. If something seems a little bit off, then just blame it on the spooky season. If you're having trouble getting a smooth brush stroke like I am here, make sure you have enough paint on your brush and try wetting your brush a little more. Adding a little water will make the paint easier to work with. As a side note, you can paint your sky whatever combination of colors you like. The steps will all stay the same, so you're free to get as creative as you want. A sky that's all different shades of green would look really spooky for Halloween too. As long as you have a light, medium, and dark shade, your sky will look great. Unless you mix purple into green or blue into orange, which will make brown. I'm starting with a yellow, then blending into a magenta color before finishing with purple at the top because I think it would make for a nice sunset. Yellow and purple will also make brown, and that's why I'm going to make sure to clean my brush and put a layer of pure magenta before putting my dark purple at the top. If your colors start looking muddy even if you've done that, you might want to get some clean water to wash your brush out in. Sometimes having dirty paint water can mess us up. Feel free to paint over any spots that are bothering you, but don't stress out too much because we're going to do a second layer anyway. A second layer will help correct anything that's bothering you and fill in any gaps you may have left, or make thinner spots just look more opaque. If you're happy with your first layer though, it's okay to leave it there. Sometimes I'm really happy with my first layer and I don't want to mess it up. Now I'm going to paint a second layer because I feel like I have a lot of holes to fill in. It's amazing how much a second layer just makes everything look so much more deliberate. Bring some darker strokes down into your lighter areas and add some light spots to the darker areas. This can help it look more blended even when it's not, and it makes for a fun texture. The more darkness there is at the top, the brighter our stars and moon will appear later on. At the very top of the painting, we can put the pure dark color. Wait for your painting to dry completely before adding stars, so if you get a star you don't like, you can simply wipe it off. If you use your hairdryer to speed up the drying process, be quick with it so you don't get the paint hot. Acrylic paint can sometimes change color slightly if it gets too hot. And just as a heads up, if you use more student-grade paints, be sure not to hang your painting in direct sunlight, as it will fade faster. Now it's time for star splatter. Thin down some white paint with water. The consistency should be runny but not super transparent. Mix in a little pink, yellow, or blue to give your stars a magical tint. Toothbrushes work great for this step, but you can use a lot of different brushes. I like to use a fan brush because you get a lot of fun variation. Experiment with different brushes to see what kind of splatter that you like the most. And splatter away! Tapping your splatter brush against a different brush can help a lot. Once you're satisfied with your stars, wait for them to dry completely. Once dry, take a clean, dry brush that's frayed at the end. Old brushes work great for this, so save your ruined brushes. Take the tiniest bit of yellow on the end of the brush and rub it against your palette to get all the excess paint off. Rub this over the biggest stars to make them glow brightly. Add as much or as little glow as you like. It's subtle, but I think it adds a lot to a sky. Put a pure white dot in the middle of your star to highlight it. Now it's moon time! You can paint your moon in whatever phase you like, but for this painting, I like the look of a skinny little crescent moon. Mix some yellow and white paint. I want the moon to be yellow, but yellow is a very transparent color, and adding a little white might help make it a bit more opaque. I had to do a few layers to get it as yellow as I wanted. Draw your crescent and fill it in. Drawing it in chalk before going in with paint can help if that feels intimidating, and you can trace any circular thing for this to get a nice clean moon. Then again, a crooked little moon is perfect for a Halloween painting, so don't stress yourself out trying to make it perfect. Fill in the rest of the moon with a dark gray, purple, or black so you can't see stars through it, or else little gremlins who hate whimsy will come for you to destroy your happiness. I used purple. Wait for it to dry completely. Once it's dry, take the same brush you used to make your stars shine. Using the same method as the stars, put a little yellow on your brush and brush off the excess. Scrub over your moon from the inside, rubbing outward, so the brightest glow will be closest to the moon, fading outward. Repeat as many times as you feel you need until you're happy with the glow. Building up thin layers will give it a softer look. I did about 3 layers to get mine looking the way I wanted it to. Dot some white on the inner part of your moon to brighten it back up. After that, I went back around the edges of my moon with pure yellow to define it a bit better. Then I added a touch more white. If your glow goes a little out of control like mine did, just take the same dark color you used for the dark side of your moon and bring it over the glow to tone it down. Now that our sky is finished, we can start working on the cemetery. We want to create the illusion of a sprawling countryside full of graves. We'll do it in 3 separate layers, starting with the one farthest away. Mix a nice light gray color using black, white, and a little green or purple. I like green because it looks a little mossy. You're looking for a nice zombie gray color. The longer the distance, the less detail and color you'll see. I sketched the shape of the first hill, then fill it in with flat color. You won't see a ton of details from this distance. You don't have to bring it all the way to the bottom, as we'll need that space to fill in the middle and the foreground. Now we can add a few spooky trees with the same color. The more crooked they are, the spookier your cemetery will look. You can easily get crooked trees by holding the brush further back on its handle. This will give your tree a more organic look. Give it lots of spooky little branches by watering down your paint to the point where it's still opaque, but much easier to get a thin line. Twisting your brush slowly as you pull it along can help keep the tip of your brush sharp to give you a creepy little point. You can practice in a sketchbook or a piece of scrap paper first to get a feel for it. Oh yeah, and don't forget to put out candy to avoid any tricks tonight. Oh, and don't forget to lock your door behind you. There, now that the trick-or-treaters are happy, let's paint some tombstones. A square brush will help a lot with this, but it isn't entirely necessary, and I'm going to switch to a finer brush later for the little details. Use the same gray-green color you used for your hills. I like to add a variety to make it interesting to look at. Mix up tall, skinny stones with short and wide ones to break it up and avoid any patterns. We don't want a neat, tidy cemetery. We want an old, haunted cemetery. I use a finer brush to put in little details after you have the basic shapes down. Make the base of the tombstones look like there's some old grass and weeds by flicking brush strokes upwards. You can look up different tombstone references online, or do what I did and go to an actual cemetery to get sketches of real tombstones. It was fun. For the middle ground, simply darken your background color just a shade or two by adding more black and green. You don't want it too much lighter, just enough to differentiate between the two. Also, when we add the black silhouettes in front of it, they'll stand out better if they're against paler colors. Draw in as many tombstones as you like, making them slightly larger than the ones in the background. The closer things get to us, the bigger they are. It's alright if you can't mix the exact same color every time. A field of grass isn't all one color either. To help give the illusion of distance, I added a spooky little fence. Start by sketching in the horizontal pole so that you know what direction your fence is going. Be sure to follow the shape of your ground so the fence doesn't look like it's floating. I put 2 horizontal bars. The closer they are to you, the farther apart they're spaced. The further they are, the closer together as the fence gets smaller. When you draw vertical bars, the same rule applies. Very small bars closer together in the back. As you work your way forward, begin adding a little more space between each bar. I decorate my fence by adding a sharp little triangle on top of each fence post. These will keep out any unwanted visitors. Hopefully. Now for the foreground. This is fun since you don't have to mix any colors. We're just going to be using straight black to give it a dramatic contrast. Sketch in where your ground will be. I draw mine along the very bottom of the canvas. Once your ground is in, decide where you want your big spooky tree. Human eyes like balanced things, so I painted mine to the left since it balances out the moon. Add lots of little spindly branches coming off of it, getting skinnier and skinnier the higher you go. I mainly draw my branches from the trunk outward, twisting as I go, but sometimes I can get a finer line by starting at the end of the branch and pulling it back towards the trunk. Play around with it and find out what you like the best. This part may take some patience, but keep adding smaller and smaller branches until your tree looks fuller, and that'll make for a pretty spooky tree. Paint more tombstones here and there while leaving room for jack-o'-lanterns in between. Just get the basic shape down. They're gonna look like blobs until we add the faces. Then they'll look like spooky blobs. Remember, we'll see a bit more detail up this close, so take the time to make some taller grass and weeds. We'll be able to add a bit more detail to these tombstones later, since the jack-o'-lanterns will illuminate them once we light them up. Now, if any terrible mistakes, or worse, unhappy accidents appear mysteriously inside your painting, don't panic. These things happen. Sometimes your finger slips, and it can be such a nightmare. Don't worry, I'll show you how to fix it right now. Acrylic paint is very forgiving. Simply relax and wait for your painting to dry completely. If you try to wipe off your mistake or paint over it while it's still wet, you may get a muddy mess. Once it's dry, you can easily paint over your nightmare. If your paint is a beginner or student grade, it might take a couple of layers, but be patient with it. We painted our sky in various different shades and tones, so if any of your background colors are a little off, it won't be noticeable at all in the end. Paint over the mistake in the same order we painted our painting originally, starting with the sky, then the background, then the middle ground, and finally the foreground. See how easy it is to cover mistakes in acrylic paint if we stay calm. It's like it was never even there, and the less we think about it, the better. Now we can turn our pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns. Mix some white into your yellow to make it more opaque if you have a very translucent yellow. Draw spooky faces on each pumpkin. I like mine with little angry faces and sharp teeth, but yours could be silly if you like. Wait for the faces to dry completely. Once they're dry and you're not at risk of wiping the faces off, let's make them glow. You're an expert at making things glow by now. Quick, grab your glow brush and your yellow paint. Scrub a little yellow over them and don't worry, if you lose any detail, we can add it back in later on. Dot some pure white in the center of our jack-o'-lantern faces to act as our light source. It would be weird if the light didn't touch anything else, so you can scrub some yellow light onto the surrounding tombstones, tree trunk, and grass to give them a little shape and detail. Use pure yellow so it's a little transparent. And last but not least, add some spooky little flyaway embers by dotting on some yellow, then some white. And with that, you're done. Now you have an amazing and spooky painting to show to all of your friends and family. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. Have a happy and safe Halloween, and don't forget to lock